You're live. Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh, bringing you live a topic as always we do. And today, our topic is very much to everyone relates to, resonates with, but not necessarily everything. Everybody likes to live the similar way, the way everybody lives. But at the end of the day, what we understand as a humans is we are here to evolve. And so the topic today is when it comes to evolvement, what is evolvement and how do we see evolvement as and what is that? This all relates to our life that we are born with. And then we disappear and we call it ourselves, or we died, or we passed away, or that's a death, or that's the reality. So I'm going to uncover today with my guest speaker, amazingly from British Columbia, Canada, all the way, Lorna, and we are going to talk about life and death. The life and death, I want to begin here that do we know life? We only know life when we are born. And that also when we are become conscious about what is life. But then we are told that when we live or when we are living, we are going to die. So the truth, what we know, understand, or what we can completely confirm from our mindset consciously is that we're going to die. So what is death? Is it, are we going to die, or is it evolvement, or what is it? Let's uncover all these beautiful, amazing things that we have to understand ourselves when we live every single moment. So, first, I want to acknowledge and invite Lorna Gale, who has once again does the honor to talk about this topic because she herself has got experiences like myself and like others who are listening. They have all sorts of real experiences. So this is all about real talk that we come with our own mind, that we come with our own kind of resonation, but own experiences and own wisdom that we have gained so far. So, Lorna, welcome to this beautiful topic of life and death. I want to begin with it. What's your take on this topic, and why do we really need to talk about this topic, life and death? I want to start with that and why it
Mhm.
is so important.
There you go. Hi, Shailesh. It's good to be here with you again. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. And as I said before the recording came on, is I'm curious to see what's going to come up in our conversation.
Hmm. That's
um,
right.
yes. And it's actually interesting. I tend to see that oftentimes I, myself included, we tend to want to have answers. Like I
Hmm.
want to be able to, what is life? What is death?
Hmm.
And I've come to really appreciate sometimes those parts where we just kind of nudge open, some different perspectives of some things that we've thought, and to sometimes more sit in the question or be curious,
Hmm.
sometimes challenging our thoughts, our beliefs, even our experience to that this point,
Hmm.
by having some new perspectives or some of the ways that we have thought a little bit challenged, a little bit
Hmm.
questioned, so that we don't just sort of go along. Because it seems that when we have this idea that this is what it is, we sort of march along that way, this certain path. And
Hmm.
when another perspective comes up or something, it's, oh, wait a minute. And I think a lot of us, right, in terms of as we live, as this life is being lived, as we live this
Hmm.
life,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's how many of us talk about we reach these pivot points where we're going along, all of a sudden life happens and, we're in a whole different direction. So that in itself really speaks to this sense of that openness to what is this? What is going on?
So I want to touch on that. What is going on? So when we are born, so they call it birth. So is birth means life? Or is it when we actually start living our moments or start breathing our moments? Because that's where we are alive when we breathe. That's the one of the more what you call it answer to life that okay, you're breathing, so there is a life. So
Mm-hmm.
is it a breathing called life? Is it birth, just having a birth of a baby, irrespective of gender? It's a baby, and is it called life? Or when we start uncovering ourselves with our own conscious that what is life? How do you see this as a starting point of what people need to understand or what I need to understand is like okay, I can say that oh, I was born, but I don't know. I was told by someone that I was born when I am become. conscious. So how do you put this perspective?
The visual, Shailesh, that comes to mind is
Mm-hmm.
looking at this aspect. I'm going to go to the other end of things of
Mm-hmm.
um, when somebody's dying. There's often that description of
Mm-hmm.
um, I was going towards the light.
Mm-hmm.
And what if, what if actually that whole birthing process, a child who has, this child that has been in this dark womb for these 9 months is being birthed, and
Mm-hmm.
there is light at the end of the tunnel, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is that aspect of this child, are they dying to that way of being and now being birthed into another one? And so what we call birth
Mm-hmm.
is it actually going into another realm of being from what we have been, and is death actually going being birthed from this way into another way? Asking the questions, not saying I have any answers to that, and I
No,
wouldn't want to say this is the way it is.
no.
It's just to be able to, what if,
Mm.
what if that going towards the light is a birthing process of its own?
True, true. So just to resonate with that darkness, what you started with is quite good. Like there is a light at the tunnel of it. Is there a transition from the dark to come towards the light, and that is called birth? Or even like when it compares with death, or we are not there anymore, but we don't know. Others are telling us. Just like birth, we don't know when we are born. We don't know. Somebody is telling that you are born, and somebody is
Mhm.
celebrating our birth. Same thing when we die, we don't know ourselves, but somebody is telling that we are gone or we are no, right? How ironic it is that for a human journey, when they know that they are not in control of their own birth or of their own death, but they still have to live throughout as their own identity and as their own self. It's very fascinating. So I wanted to compare this with like when we are sleeping. Let's start with this very topic called when we are sleeping. So we know that when others tell us that, okay, this person is no more or is passed away because he's not existing in the universe or along with us, and we are not able to communicate and all. Just like when we are sleeping, isn't it a similar kind of thing? But it may be a temporary thing for as long as when you wake up, then we know that, oh, we are still alive. But otherwise, we are sleeping and we think that is also, how do you compare that with death? Suppose, like, because it's non-existence, right? When we are sleeping, also, we are non-existence for many people around us. So they
Mm-hmm.
cannot say that we are not there unless they see us, unless they, test us. How do you see this aspect of sleeping and death when it comes
Mm-hmm.
up?
Mm-hmm. Great question.
Hmm.
When there's this sense of sometimes, and I speak from my own experience, and I think what a lot of
Yes.
people have said as well, is that when you're sleeping, it's sort of this darkness, right? You're just sort of you're gone.
Hmm.
Um, that awareness, and yet there's often the dreams, and in those dreams, things seem
Hmm.
very real.
Hmm.
Uh, and so it really it's a fascinating question to be able
Hmm.
to really question sense of what we have been taught. A baby is born,
Yeah.
and there becomes, to take that breath of life, and
Hmm.
and then it goes there. So sometimes we think of life and death, but we forget about the birth part. Maybe it's birth and death,
Hmm.
and life is not only the part in between that birth and death or conception, however you want to look at that,
Yeah.
but maybe all of that conception, that birth, that death is all life.
Also,
You
if,
know,
if I add there like existence and non-existence. So we are existing, so we think that we are alive. If we are non-existent or we don't see each other, then oh, we don't know where he is or what he is, right? So is that also like a thing that we can say that, oh, you no more exist because I haven't seen you, but you exist because I see you. How
Mm,
do you make these kind of, because these are affecting our every day-to-day journey when we identify someone that they exist because we can communicate, we talk to them. But if we don't, for a longer period of time, we say, no, I haven't heard, I haven't seen. But then we don't say that they are non-existent. We don't say that they are died, right?
mm,
And
mhm,
it's quite fascinating for me to just have a yarn about this question that I had. And I thought, okay, everybody sees in a different way. For me, existence is importance. Non-existence is also importance because we try to uncover that non-existence into existence
mm,
and vice versa, whatever we look at it, because that's who we are as a human to decide for our evolvement, right? So, how do you make your kind of assumptions or your kind of suggestions that what you have experienced that, okay, when you see yourself, when you meet someone, when you don't meet someone, when you exist, when you don't exist for someone, it's like mind-boggling questions that we can ask to ourselves. But then with that, we have to live our life, whether we like it or we don't like it. So some may exist for you, some may not. But then you have want someone to exist and we don't want someone to exist. So, it's like for with all these complicated things that we are entangled with, but we have to live with this and we have to move forward with this every single time. And it's a challenge for every single time for our mind and for
mhm.
our thoughts. Is it only the thoughts that are telling us that we exist and we don't exist, or what is it?
That's awesome. Because even just yesterday and today, I was
Mm,
sitting deep in that question, and
mm,
um, I would say that the way that I experience things now is very different than, 10,
yeah,
15, 20, 30, 40 years
correct.
ago. Because as you mentioned earlier, there's a
Yeah,
sense of we are born, we grow up and,
yeah.
we do
Mm,
these things, we sleep, we wake up, and we go through our day-to-day life. And at some point,
mm,
whatever age and whatever meet by whatever means, death happens. And I've really come to have a different perspective because exactly is that when I think of, a friend, that I just maybe had coffee with yesterday, but does she exist or is it only now the thought of that? So it's such a fascinating thing. Is this
exactly.
that I can perceive right
Mm,
now,
mm,
is that the totality of the world, my world, the world, life right now? Because to be able to, um, when there is no thought, it doesn't take us beyond what we can perceive through
mm,
our senses.
mm,
And so as I say, when I talk about mindset, one of the things I get to do is a mindset coach.
mhm,
And that's not like a lot of people, think positive things, make your affirmations. I'm saying no, actually to see the set of the mind, the stage of the mind, and
mm,
see the characters that are at play. Because the play that's happening in my head in those thoughts is a whole lot different than what's actually happening right around me. It's a whole different world, if you will, a whole different
mm.
life that's happening on that stage of the mind, on that mindset.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very interesting. And so when you know that you are not going to exist one day, but that's only but that will be defined by others that we are not there. And we will also not be able to, or whether we don't know whether we will be able to still coexist invisibly in their minds, in their
Mm-hmm.
thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a complete like an illusion or whatever you call it. But one thing is sure that I have experienced, like if suppose in your life too, in my life too, people have passed away from for that who we know, but they are in our thoughts. So in reality, they exist in our thoughts. Am I right? But
Yeah.
for them, we don't know for them because they are not physically present in front of us, but they are existing somewhere. If we consider evolvement, if we consider reincarnation, if we think innerly that no, they are existing. So
Mhm.
that means they also have, must be that energy that they are looking at us or seeing at us or thinking of us, which means for them also we exist. And for us, we exist because they are in our thoughts. So we exist. They exist in our thoughts. This is something fascinating that we need. So when you know that, okay, at the end of the day, we all go, but then we all also exist in some or the other form, in our thoughts, in our actions. We can see them, we can, perceive them, all these things that we humans are capable of as a
Mhm.
embedded things that we are born with. And then we know that we are also one day going to be not seen just like them. However, we still be existing in somebody else's minds, just
Mhm.
like they exist in our mind.
Sure, that's right. That the image that comes to mind as you're saying that, Shailesh, is that of
Mm.
in a library. You've got all kinds of different books, like different
Yep.
genres of books, right? And it
Mhm.
could be that this novel, with the main character of Shailesh, you
Mm.
know, is has these characters, and Lorna's
Mm.
in there. And then in
Mm.
this book, this novel of Lorna,
Mm.
oh, I've got Shailesh as a character in my story as well. And so
True.
that's where I think it's just kind of an interesting
Mm.
play of literally a play.
Exactly, exactly. It is. It is a playground that we, see and we don't see. It's like a hide and seek.
Mhm.
It's like a hide and seek.
Very true. Mhm.
But in terms of, so when we know that we are gonna not exist, or when we know, how do you think that we should all be like, when you think yourself and when I think about myself, how do we live? Because we are actually going beyond what we are saying at the moment. We are making this topic interesting, or we are talking about this topic is because we are going beyond than what we are living every single day, because we know but talking, it's not waste or it's not wasteful or it's not meaningful. By talking, it's actually understanding our own journey, that we are capable of knowing so many things beyond than just words. So
Mhm.
life and death are not just words. We are looking at beyond, right? To talk about it.
Mhm.
How do we live our life, Lona?
uh, I love this conversation. In
Yeah.
my experience, I would say there are two, and not only two, but at least two different ways we can look at, for example, at the level of the human experience where we're born, we live, we die.
Yeah.
And as I see that, there's the part where when breath comes in and we talk about the first breath, we're waiting for that baby to take their first breath. Okay,
Mm.
life has started. And then at the end, we talk about, and life, they took their last breath. So
Mm.
that breath seems to be that thread, if you will, of
Good.
life. We talk about the breath of life. It's breaths, it's life's breath.
Mm.
Not
Mm.
that breath gives life, but it's actually the literal breath of
Yeah.
life itself.
Breath of life.
And
Yeah.
so breathing and living that.
Mm.
So on one level, I see that, you know, here, yeah, we want to experience this, and setting our intentions, setting goals, and having our bucket list of what we want to do.
Mm.
The way that we experience food, the way we experience
Mm.
relationships, all the
Mm.
different explorations. I think there's that one level that we can do. We can have that. How do we live? Some people just kind of nonchalantly, some people very intently, some people, just kind of laissez-faire, and other people, laser focused. So I think there's a real different way of how we do it. And it's everybody's own experience, and
Yeah.
it seems like no matter what, how do we live, it includes this up and down and up and down and meandering and you know the straight line, if you will. And
Yeah.
on another level, I look at it as how we live, and you alluded to it earlier, is that aspect of, is there something else that's doing, that's making the decisions and things.
Mm.
Years ago, I remember one of the people that came into my world
Mm-hmm.
said, when you're sitting there typing, where does the idea come about what you're going to type?
mm,
Well, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to type this. Okay, well, where did that thought come from?
mm,
And so to be able to take it to that level of,
yeah,
even when I say I'm thinking this or I'm going to think about this, well, where did that idea come to think about that? So in my experience, there is what I call life itself living us. That
mm,
it's not about us living, but life is living in and as us.
mm,
And we get to be witness to, or even there, it's sort of that it's when we're used to thinking we are human, we are
mm,
people, that's the lens we're looking through it. And it's this bit by bit. When I think about death, there's also that part of the death of the sense of who I think I am,
mm.
And so it
True.
actually, the ultimate death is
That's a
actually
beautiful. Mm,
that death of who we have come to think
mm,
that we are. And what a beautiful experience to live in that. I remember when I was years ago when I was doing my degree to be a teaching school in
mm,
the teach to
yeah.
teach in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my courses for me to take was drama.
Mm,
And our instructor was at the time be
mm,
playing he was in the play Macbeth, and it was fascinating to watch over the course of that school year, the university year, to watch him, being this jovial person and interacting, to watch his character, like his personality, start to change. And it's kind of like, where's Larry? Who are you and what'd you do with Larry? And it really was this amazing thing to see that character change as he got into character of that to play that role. And
mm,
I would say that's, in my experience, that's the journey of life, is coming from spirit
mm,
and
yeah.
and the forgetting of, if you will, or the covering over of taking on the characteristics of a person, learning to be this personality for each of us as individuals. And that at some point there may be a physical death, if you will, but for so many people there's also that sense of death of the sense of identity, that awakening to going through the tunnel of the dark night of the soul and coming into the light
Mm.
of awareness of, um, oh, we're not these humans that we thought we were, but life living us.
So there are two things that I could uncover, which I was about to ask you, and then you touched on that already. Is like, how do we call ourselves like when we are dead or when we are not doing anything? Because we all have been given the senses as a human being. So we have been given sense of touch, sense of feeling, sense of seeing, sense of hearing. We have got all these senses, right? And then one of the senses or few of the senses or whatever you call it, when it's not working, that's only that I can't hear or I can't talk or I can't see. Then those senses, are they also like one way or one part of, like, just like before I said sleeping, is it sleeping also dead temporary? Or is it these senses? Are they also like dead for temporarily? Or for something that you never thought of, that now that because you can't move, we can't do anything. So we people call it, oh, he's already dead. We don't want to know about that. Right? But when you are lively, when all your senses are working, and that's probably why the humanity aspect comes into humans, that, hey, who do you consider dead? Just because that person is a disabled or not able to do certain things, are you calling that person a dead? Is the brain dead? Are you, if it is mentally challenged people that we call it, but we don't know whether those people may be calling us mentally challenged. We may think that we are the major portion, that we are working our senses very well. So we are the most authentic or original humans, we may call it. And those people who cannot certain things do, they are not humans, but they are just disabled. So they have given unnecessarily a name or a label. which is they could say the same thing for us, and we are saying the same thing for them, right? So it's a challenge, it's a battle, but we are talking about life. So is this life? Are you calling those people who can't do certain things as dead or can't do anything? So that means they have declared themselves, hello, I can't do anything now. I am asleep and I don't have to do anything. So how do you live their life and or that type of life? What would you call? Or when somebody does everything and they say, oh, that person is quite lively, energetic, but then we all know these lively, energetic, whatever the positive things that we call is a temporary thing at the end of the day. It's not going to be continuing forever, right? We are not immortals. So when we know we are not immortals, when we know we are gonna, so why have we made all these life definitions for humans of
Mm,
certain categories, certain things, certain way, you know?
mhm,
How do you
mhm,
see this who are listening now, maybe thinking that, okay, is it really humans then we call ourselves when we know the power of our understanding, when we know the power of beyond?
mm,
Why do we make decisions now for certain
mhm.
humans? Is it fair? Is it fair
Oh.
to do that? How do you view this?
That's what a great exploration.
It was
Oh my.
too long for me to elaborate, but I'm just experiencing that on my own and thinking that,
Yeah.
okay, why do we have to then, declare someone disabled
Hmm.
or not able? Yeah.
Yeah. I there are so many people in my through my teaching in the
Mm,
school system
mm,
of students that I had in my classroom, people that I worked with when I was well, I still do in the energy work, doing energy work, different people who had, you know, children who had, and their bodies, their bodies were the size of a 18-month-old child, and they
mm,
were 14 and 16 years old,
mm,
and really weren't able to communicate. A friend who has an autistic son, these various people, a friend of mine who was blind,
mm,
that that we have this idea of what is normal, what is
mm,
what is right. This is what's normal,
mm,
and anything else is disabled, lacking, mentally
mm.
challenged. Um,
Abnormal.
and yet, to talk to these people,
Mm,
they are the parents of these children, or
mm,
speak to their children. These children are connected to a whole different realm of life than
mm,
we can even comprehend. Um, take away a different sense, and all of a sudden everything else becomes even more acute. And so
mm,
that's the lens that these, the people are doing it through. One of the women I used to work with,
mm,
um, she lived most of her life in a wheelchair, and
correct.
she was so, it's almost like when something is a sense or ability is taken away or limited,
Mm,
it's different than what we say is normal. It's
mm,
like that energy is channeled into a way that allows them to experience and be a
mm,
part of life in a way that we who
mm,
aren't in that thing can't even comprehend. And so
exactly.
I would say that's a big part of it. We have,
Mm,
here's our idea of what's normal, which fits into our idea of, the duality. There's right and wrong, there's good and bad. Anything that doesn't fit into this little box,
yeah.
mm, you know,
Mm,
but
mm,
I love that because, as science and
mm,
as people themselves are saying, that's, I'm experiencing something very different. Or, the double split side, the test, right? Where things don't exist unless somebody's observing them. So there's all kinds of different ways that are challenging
mm,
what we have thought to be. And it's almost like that's just part of the human experience, to be able to, okay, let's start with this and say that's what it is. What can we explore? What can we see? What else is there? So it's, in some ways, it feels like that's part of the game, the play, the challenge of life, of this human experience.
And why I bought this, Lona, is like, when I see and when we see our predecessors, or when we see the inventors who invented so many beautiful things in this life for humans to experience. For example, if you look at Albert Einstein, if you look at Stephen Hawkins, you call them great personalities, but then they had mental challenges, physical challenge, everything they had. And yet we acknowledge them. So there is no normal or abnormal or anything. At the end of the day, this is life that they have created, and they have performed more better than people you can perform. So is it really what you see is that, or you have to always look consciously and beyond what you see? And that's the part that I'm coming, the aspect of spirituality. Because we often talk about soul, we often talk about life as a soul, we often talk about life as a death, and then first death, and then again life, or life and then death, whatever. It's like, who came first, chicken or egg? Who came
Yeah.
the first? Is the life arrived, or is the death has to be there, then only the life will arrive? What is it? Like,
Mm,
And if you look at from that angle, but then what I wanted to just here make a mark of my own experience, that for me, life is not about identifying, labeling, or creating genders or these and that for restricting, and people saying that, oh, you're not good, or you're not bad, or you're bad, or whatever, you are excellent or non-excellent. It's not about that, because everyone has a journey, irrespective of whatever they have to live. And so based on that, and they can create, and they can still be acknowledged by the same set of humans who maybe you call it normal because they have got everything, or you may call as abnormal because they don't have certain things, but still it is acknowledged by every human for every human's creativity, whether that has come from abnormal or that has come from a normal human. It's
right.
not matters, because we acknowledge and we appreciate every single human because we are one of them, which means there
Right.
is some relation with that, irrespective of what we label ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
How
That's
important is this? Tell me.
mm. As a two different things that come to mind is, first of all, there's a little cartoon. I don't know where it was on social media or someplace seeing it. A little cartoon of a little girl saying to her mom, "Mommy, what is normal?" And the
Mm-hmm.
mom replying, "It's a setting on the dryer."
Mm-hmm.
So it's that's all you need to know. It's a setting on the dryer if you want things at a normal temperature or if you want it high or low. Just normal. That's what normal is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love that you talk about the thing about labels. That's a big
Mm-hmm.
part of my work, how I approach
Mm-hmm.
um, my own world, my work that I do is really looking at labels. That when we come in as babies, when we are born, that we're just taking things in through the senses, and responding to, with cries and giggles, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
based on what is felt and perceived. And little by little, there's this, oh, hi, baby, oh, look, and right away, as you say, there's often a gender
Mm-hmm.
attributed, let's put on the label of a gender based on
Yeah.
what the body looks like, what the shape of the body is,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's, hi, I'm mommy, I'm daddy, and here's a puppy, and here's a dog, and here's a cup, and here's brother, here's sister. Oh, are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you angry? Are you sad? All of a sudden we take this experience that's just through the senses and being felt through this filter and this um, receptor, or the um, vehicle, the instrument of the body to be able to perceive and feel things,
Mm-hmm.
but we label them. And I say that that's often where later on we come into things because we call things, I'm angry, I'm this and that, but we hold on to the words, the labels, rather than going in and just feeling those things.
Yeah.
The quote that is often attributed to Shakespeare is, "A rose by any other name would smell as sweet."
Right.
We call it a posy, we call it whatever. And I say it doesn't need a label
Mm-hmm.
at all. It doesn't need
Mm-hmm.
any name to smell how it smells.
Yeah. And this
And
is just to add to that Shakespeare. I also remember Shakespeare also said once, what's there in a name? You don't need to have a name.
No,
That's
no.
so beautiful, he said. And if you look at the roots of the tree, it's the same thing. We don't talk about the roots, but that is the main cause of the tree to grow.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about it, and we don't need to talk about it. And that's
Mhm.
so beautifully that, as you said, like you value the smile, you value the rain. You don't need to know how the rain comes and goes and where it goes and how it comes, but you have to enjoy the rain. That's the
Right.
thing, right?
Yeah, so true. And I think each one of us in our own ways, multiple times, have had that experience where we experience something, like you say, maybe the
Mm.
rain, the sunset, whatever it is, we're just,
Yeah.
it takes our breath away and we're just there.
Mm.
It's those wordless moments. Yeah, we're
Mm.
just taking it in, we're perceiving it at our natural essence way, if you will. And then we try to explain it, try to take a picture of it to hold on to it. It's just kind of like, no, it's gone. There was the moment to experience.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you said about the baby cries and the giggles and the human's expression. Now, these are expressions that everybody can see it when you do it. But some, as you said, like when you write something, also that expression comes up automatically when you read it. That also is so powerful. The writing or cartoons or whatever you see and you express it, right? You don't need people around you just to express. There may not be people, there may be people, but you can express irrespective.
Hmm.
Even you express for yourself within your own body and mind when you
Hmm.
feel something or when you think about something. So this feeling, the cries, the giggles. I wanted to ask you this as a spiritual and also as a coach that you can thought about how important is this expression, but then the other side of the coin of our life as a life to live is we express and we call it, oh, he's expressive, he's great, lively person. But then there is another person who doesn't express, who suppresses, whose expression doesn't come out, and then he's struggling inside. These are two aspects of the same life. So life is not expression, life is not suppression, life is both, everything.
Hmm.
But this is how you perceive humans when they express or when they suppress, right? And so
Hmm.
when you are living a life, every single moment, certain things you express, certain things you suppress, certain things you follow the norms or the system or the norms, we call norms. And so then you become a normal human being because you are not expressing certain things, because that's what
Hmm.
you are not supposed to do certain things. That's how we have been told or we have been asked to do it. So the life when we don't express and the life when we suppress, how important and critical it is, because you have only one life, but also you have limited time. Also, you have limited breaths, and we touched on that breath and everything. How do we live when you know that, hey, why should I not express? Why did I suppress? Or why should not I express? Why should I express? Why I am feeling tension or stress when we don't do certain things the way, because just looking at other people or what other system or our surroundings, we don't do that. And so that's who is the main effect happens only to those that person, because that person is not taking those actions, so that person is getting that tensions or emotional well-being when you call it. But is
Hmm.
that a life? How do you see life to be lived? Expressive, suppressive, whatever. Tell me something on your point of view.
Hmm. I see uh, that there's always something that's being expressed,
Mm,
and I know in the coaching world, there's often this idea, and I've spoken it myself. This sense of, our voice has been shut down or we're not expressing.
mm,
But in that, when that's not there, it's going to come out some other way. So if you think about a fireplace, it
mm-hmm,
can or a stove, a wood stove or something, that you can create that fire that's in there and you can vent it, and it goes outside into the house, and to warm the house. But if that's shut off, that heat is going to go someplace, that energy is going to go someplace. And it could be that, it gets too hot for the stove or whatever. but that energy, it's expressing always somehow,
mm,
just a matter of what form it is. And we have the way that, in my experience, that we have labeled things. Speaking of labels, we've talked
mm,
about things are, and again, I say, I use the word by divine design for this
mhm,
human story, this unfolding human story, that we label things and we say that some things are good and some things are bad. Things are desirable or things we want to avoid. We talk about we want to have pleasure, but we're going to avoid pain. So it's always this go towards something and go away
mm,
from something.
yeah,
And when we start to take away the labels, that we
mm,
find that it's all just a matter of feeling it all. We don't
mm,
even, when it becomes, instead of, okay, I'm trying to feel this, but I'm going to avoid this, that
mm,
all of a sudden, when we open it up, then we're able to feel the fullness
mm,
of things. Take away the label, and here's just, wow, we get to go on some mountains, we get to go on some here, we get to go here and there, and none of the journey then is seen
mm,
as right or wrong, good or bad, but
mm,
simply an array, a variety
mm,
of facets to the experience and to express. And so, if we want to have it where in the human thing, some people will want to express in a certain way,
mm,
that's, they're feeling called to. That's awesome. Some
yeah,
people are feeling like, wow, if I want to express, the way that I want to express is being by myself.
mm,
Awesome. And so to be able to look at that, any times when we have an idea of something being repressed or suppressed, that energy is being channeled into someplace else. It's
mm,
being utilized in a different way, sometimes what we would call positive and sometimes negative, but it
mm,
still will be expressed. And all of that then creates this unfolding
mm.
life story for
Yep.
that particular person.
Yeah, so I got this last final two major points. It's quite expressive, but I think we can try and do it in a little shorter way.
Sure.
One is the beliefs that we, as a life that we are given, and we have been asked, we have been embedded as a belief system in us. And then we have also been embedded in us that you don't have to be just believing and doing, and but you can also seek, which is you are to explore and keep seeking, and you have to be more curious about life, right? So one way is like believing and one way is seeking. You have a choice to live your life. But one, if you look at from this angle, belief system and a seeking system. And then if I compare that with belief and seeking, why people struggle is because of fear. So one is fearful and the another is fearless. So if you look at belief system, I have experienced, this is my own experience, and Lona, you can put throw more light on it as a coach. Like when you are believing certain things, even your own thoughts, then you become fearful of so many things automatically. Because now you are expecting with your belief system an answer or an expected answer, and then only you want to take actions, right? But if you become the other side of the coin, rather than believing, become a seeker, which means curious all the time and try to challenge and question everyone and even yourself, that means you become fearless.
Mm-hmm.
So from fearful belief to you become fearless seeking. I compare this myself because I have experienced this because when I want to do certain things, before a few years ago, many years ago, I used to be fearful all the time to do or not to do, whether I will achieve or I will hurt or I will get what I want or not. But then once I became fear seeker rather than believing, oh, I don't want to believe my own systems and my own thoughts. Let me try something else. Irrespective I know or not, I'll just give it a go. And I started doing that. And then I started feeling good about even though no achievement, less achievement, little achievement, doesn't matter. It was giving me a good feeling that I'm creating on my own something and I'm not trapped into the belief, trapped into the expectations, always expect the unexpected. So I always like to see your thoughts. believing and seeking and fearful and fearless, because then you can accomplish a lot. But fearless means you also can say that, hey, nothing happens, I've done it before, don't worry, you know. But fearful means, no, I've done it but it didn't work and I am not going to do again. So it's two pros and cons to it. But the
Mm.
life that we have to live, how do we live? Because we know that we are going to die or we're going to be not existent that we started. What's your views on these two aspects that I just told you? Let me see,
Mm.
I want to uncover that from you, Lona. This
Sure.
is,
Yeah. And I love that the fearful beliefs to the fearless
hmm,
um, seeking. I
hmm,
love that. Um, when I look at the word, well, when I look at the word belief or believe,
hmm.
inside I see, when I look at the spelling of it, LIE. There's always a lie
Oh,
embedded
wow. Love it.
within a belief. And
Okay.
and I think that fits also into that aspect of you're part of the fearful,
Of the
because
fearful.
we
Yeah.
hold on to our beliefs. What are we
Hmm,
afraid of?
hmm,
What lie are we holding on to,
hmm,
that if we were, what life raft is that belief being? What are we afraid of would
hmm,
happen, who we are if we
hmm.
let go of that belief?
Correct.
So I love I love diving into what is the lie embedded with that belief,
Hmm,
and where does fear keep us holding on to that?
hmm.
That ultimately it seems that when we can let go of all of the beliefs, all of those things, and there are no words, there we are in the true essence of who
Hmm.
we are as what I call life itself.
Yeah.
Um, and it seems that there's, I just want to pause for a moment because there was a thought. I just want to see if it's to come back. Hmm, I don't know. Um, there's something, I know what it is. It was at a piece about the seeking, the fearful and the seeking, that curiosity. That again, in my view, my experience and what I teach is that we have been taught by divine design to, in this story of being human, to look outside,
Hmm.
look outside for, the new frontier, that exploration, right? But there's
Yeah.
also those parts of look outside of ourselves for permission, for authority, for validation, for
True.
acceptance. We're all looking outside of ourselves.
Hmm.
And so, in terms of how to live our life, that's what I say, come on home, come on back, so that we're living from the inside out, not the outside in. Am I doing it right? Am I going to do okay? What do they think? What do they? It's just kind of like, here I am. So that's where my invitation is for people to come on home to, letting go of those beliefs, letting go of those, what we think we should be doing, the shroud of shame, taking that off, and to be able to come back home, be in our bodies at the human level, as
Hmm.
well as knowing that spirit, the breath, that life is breathing, living us, and we will live then from the inside out. And that's where that curiosity and, oh my goodness, what is possible? And riding those waves that come along in that, and the thrill, the joy of feeling in this human experience.
Yes, I think you very well said that. It quite resonated with the concept of coming back to home, which is coming back to inner self. And I think this is where we are talking about today is life, because life is all within us. It's
Mm,
not outside. And
yeah.
I really 100% love this conversation, Lona, because you brought up the essence of my resonation with that question of belief and curiosity, or fearful and fearless. And if you look at innerly, when it comes back, it all comes down to us, because only we know inside what it is. Every individual only know them. And that is the most fearless thing that they know, which nobody knows outside. So I 100% agree. This is beautiful. I got what I wanted, Lona. So, listeners, this is something amazing that you can also look into it because finally, at the end, what we want to live our life every single moment is innerly. And this is what we become fearless when we live innerly. And we all don't have to look outside because then outside means, as you rightly said, we are always looking for validation, permission, acceptance, gratitude, all that things we are looking for outside. When reality is, it is all within us.
Hmm. Yes,
And I
yes.
think this listeners, I want to really take a moment here and to tell you that Lona's coaching, as you can see, the way I tend to ask questions, but I like to ask because I am curiosity. I am a seeker, so I like to trigger. But then it comes down to, as we say, it comes down back to the home that where we belong or where we want to go from here. So life and death is not something that is labeled or can be labeled, but it is all within us because when we suppress or when we express, it's all within us. And everything we can do is here inside us. And when we go or when we not exist or when we exist, it is still within us that we keep telling us that we exist. Irrespective whether we sleep in the morning or night, doesn't matter. So I want to take this moment, Lona. Tell me something finally. Let's have this beautiful conversation end to their final marks on life and death that we have chosen this topic. Obviously, it's not never-ending topic that we can keep layers and layers because people live their life and we want to come back with it with the materialistic world of living and the materialist non-materialistic world of living. We want to also excel how spiritually it aligns when it comes to accumulation or non-accumulation or freedom or like attachments and detachments. This is also a part and parcel of our life and death because we are attached even if we are died. We are attached with our thoughts, with their thoughts. And how do we detach those and how do we make those? That's altogether a different ball conversation because this is not going to end, dear listeners. Tell us something finally, Lona. What would you say in this episode today to all the listeners that, okay, at the end of the day, how simple, how easy, how without complication that a human journey, when it compares with life and death, that we should be all, you know, concentrating or focusing rather than making it complicated or committed to ourselves. How do we live freely? This is my final thing for you
Mm.
to answer this.
So that life is this. Say simply, this is life.
Mm.
Whatever this in this moment is life.
Yes. Yeah.
And the death, when you think about the physical body,
Mm.
death is always happening. How many of our
Very true.
organs and different parts,
Mm.
every day there are cells dying and, being born, new ones being born.
Mm.
So we're in this soup, if you will, of perpetual life and death in this very physical body. And so whatever seems to be happening around us, no matter, you know, excelling at something or being introvertish, whatever it is, what is life? This.
Absolutely. You said very well said. Living in the moments, in nutshell, we can say that. What is life? Live in the moments, and moments are limited. Moments, and this is another aspect which we will uncover when we talk about another episode of life and death, because how life is defined. Is it the time defines the life? Or is it, can we control the time? Can we bring the time back? Can we, make the time come to according to us? Or the time is just going to pass? We have to chase or we have to bring it towards us forward, fast forward the life. That's a different altogether conversation, but very well said. Living in the moments gives a lot of perspective for all the listeners that how to live a life is live in the moment. This is life, so don't waste or don't think that I am not doing anything. every single moment that you do is a life. So consciously, if you really all want to live, then my spirituality tells me that every moment is a moment that you can make your moment. When I say your moment doesn't mean attached to you. It means you have created for everything around you and surrounded by you. It also impacts them. So with that, Lorna, final message, and we'll close down from here. Life and death is the most amazing conversation that I had today with you. Your final words.
Mhm. Enjoy. Very
There you
simple.
go. So, listeners, life is not that hard, as Lorna says, enjoy. There's only a few words, but I love your analogy of certain things that you said when you said about believe and a lie comes in. And so, don't live your life. I also want to pick that word, that believing means also has a lie in it, or something that you don't want to live a life like that. By just believing, even if it's wrong, even if it's incorrect, don't believe, because it's a lie. So
Mhm.
create your own. So I think that's a final message also I want to give it to all the listeners. Life is not complicated. Life is very simple. As Lona says, just enjoy. And we will come back once again with this beautiful, once again, another episode of topic. And if you like this conversation, please write to us what all you need to know about life and death, whatever we have experienced, whatever you have experienced, please share with us. With that, bye for now. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening to us with this topic, life and death, which really matters to us because every single moment when we talk, when we communicate, is what we live. And we enjoy talking. How's that? Thank you.
Okay.